Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
One epic after another. And we are lucky to have Jon Krawczynski here on the Jon Krawczynski here from San Antonio to talk about the Timberwolves' latest epic victory. The last 2 games have been stunning. We're going to get into all of it. Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley, Chris Finch, the atmosphere in San Antonio, San Antonio's counterpunches. We have so much to talk about here. This is the Jon Krawczynski Show. This is part of TalkNorth.com. Best way to listen to this show is to subscribe to your favorite podcast app. Make sure also to watch this show on YouTube and follow the Jon Krawczynski Show on Instagram and Facebook so you'll see each episode as it is released. And check out all the other great shows at TalkNorth.com, including Worst Seats in the House, which is Russo and LaPanta on the Wild, also Kevin Gorga on hockey. We got lots of good stuff. Just check it out. You will enjoy it all. Well, we are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Service Studios, and we are presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata Maplewood. We also want to welcome a new sponsor, Great Clips. Jon, I don't think we can start anywhere else other than Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, it was just remarkable, Jim. When you think about what he was going through with his knee injury, when you think about the forecasts of him minimum missing 2 weeks to get back in 9 days, and to do it by doing something that he has sometimes been criticized for not doing in the past, which is paying attention to his body, going through all of the modalities to take care of himself. He put himself in a hyperbaric chamber. He did all sorts of pool work just to try and rush and get back. And then to deliver a fourth quarter, 5-minute punch with 11 points and an assist. I mean, it's everything that Kobe Bryant would do, everything that Michael Jordan would do, just a galvanizing performance that really did pave the way for this team to pull a massive upset in Game 1.
Yeah, incredible stuff. I thought being around the facility this weekend, I kept on hearing maybe Friday, maybe Sunday, maybe Friday, optimistically. It sounds like people in Ant's own corner were thinking Wednesday at the earliest. So what do you think the conversations were like with Ant and Finch and Conley, Tim Conley, that allowed Ant to actually get on the court? Because we are talking about a franchise player here, and they don't want him to suffer a short-term injury that takes him out of the rest of the series. B, they don't want to damage him long-term.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. I mean, when you look at it, there was a lot of stakeholders in this conversation because Anthony Edwards is the franchise. He arrived here in 2020 and immediately started to turn the fortunes of this team from one that was historically one of the least successful franchises in professional sports to one now that's one of the most successful in the NBA. And so there is so much more investment into Anthony Edwards' long-term health, long-term prognosis, than just one series, than just one game in these playoffs. And so Ant went through a lot of discussions, a lot of examination, a lot of meetings with the Timberwolves medical and athletic performance staff. David Hines, who is the vice president, on the Timberwolves medical side or athletic training side, is deep into Anthony Edwards' inner circle. Ant has a ton of trust in him. And so they had a lot of conversations about it. He had conversations with people outside the organization for second opinions, really kind of went through all of the risks, all of the details that were involved in this. And ultimately, it was determined that he could play and was medically cleared to play if he could kind of tolerate the pain and if he could kind of loosen those knees up and get ready to go. And so, certainly this was a lot of Anthony Edwards pushing and wanting to get out there with his team and wanting to join the fight after watching them finish off the Denver Nuggets without him. So there was a great deal of competitiveness from Anthony Edwards there. But also, I do think that this is on the Timberwolves medical side as well. They worked with him through it. They have determined that, of course, there is no guarantee that he is not going to get hurt again or suffer something, a bigger injury as he's playing through all of this. But they determined that there was no elevated risk of that happening. And so they worked together on it. They saw how badly Anthony Edwards wanted to play, and they helped get him ready to go in game one. And so, I know that a lot of Wolves fans understandably are concerned. Did he rush it back? Is he really exposing himself to greater injury? Is this really worth it? And I just can tell you that the Wolves have been meticulous in their examination of this injury and in determining that what he is doing now is medically sound as well as it is, kind of inspirational from just an overall spirit perspective as well.
Amazing stuff. We'll get back to Ant here in a little bit. Let's just talk about big picture. Winning game one in San Antonio on the road when you're the more fatigued team, when you're missing DiVincenzo, Kyle Anderson, Io, and Ant only plays 25 minutes, even though he played great for a stretch. What does this mean for the rest of the series, and what do you think? Do we have any insight into what might happen with Io the rest of the series?
Yeah, so first off on Ayo Dosunmu, remember we talked about this last week as well. There's so much that goes into his decision here. He does not have a contract for next season. He's in line for his first kind of life-changing deal. He has not, he's only been on his rookie deal so far. And so to have him watch Dante DiVincenzo tear his Achilles tendon, and then for having him experiencing calf issues, it's completely understandable that he is kind of trying to figure this out and trying to make the right decision both for him and his team. I do anticipate that we will see Ayo Dosunmu at some point in this series, and it could be sooner than later. But he is taking the precautions, and the team is taking the precautions for him that are necessary at this point. And so I do not think that he is in danger of missing this entire series. I would not be shocked to see him out there for game two against San Antonio on Wednesday. And so, we start there with what that is. With when you look at the zooming out to the big picture, to get game one, Jim, on the road, it just really positions the Wolves to go into this series with a full attack mentality now. Now you're playing with house money in game two, and you already have taken home court advantage away. You already have put the pressure on a team that is younger, that has not been here before, to come out in game two and play with desperation and play much better. That may work in the Wolves' favor. I do think that there were times in game one where Wembanyama, where Castle, where Harper, where some of these really young guys were sort of showing signs of a little bit of weight on their shoulders. And that's the best case scenario for the Timberwolves. The Spurs are a 62-win team. They're a really, really good team. They are probably going to shoot better the rest of the season this series than they did in game one. But to go in to bully ball the Spurs and to take that first game, now all of the pressure shifts onto their shoulders, and we'll see how they can handle it. But you really couldn't draw it up any better for the Wolves at this point.
No. Another big picture thing here. It seems to me when we watch the Wolves fully engaged on defense, which really only happens in certain games of the regular season and in the playoffs, but especially in the playoffs, it always looks like the other team's a little tired. It just feels like the way the Wolves play defense just puts a lot of pressure on other people physically as well as mentally or emotionally.
It's a great point, Jim. And I asked Jade McDaniels about that in the locker room after the game, kind of, asking him about the connectivity and the synergy that they are playing with defensively right now. And he did say, look, the regular season, that wasn't us. Like that wasn't, we did not sustain it the way that we know we can. But now that the playoffs are here, we know that it's, there's no possessions we're taking off. There's no matchups we're taking off. We're throwing everything we have at them. And I do think that there is a physical element to this Wolves defense that does wear on an opponent. Wembanyama played 40 minutes last night, I think for the first time all season. And he was I can't remember the exact numbers for him right now, but he was
0 for 8 from 3.
0 for 8 from 3, and he did down the stretch look a little bit more tired. He was not as active at the rim defensively in those last few minutes as he was in the first half, which he was an absolute bat out of hell. In that first half and really in the first 3 quarters. But that's been the Wolves' approach these playoffs is we're going to wear down Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and get them in the fourth quarter. And you would think that maybe that would be a little harder to do against the young legs of the Spurs, but man, it did look like that worked in their favor in game 1 against San Antonio. It looked like guys were breathing heavy. It looked like guys were adjusting to the intensity and the physicality. And the Wolves were the team that came out of that just looking like the team that was in better shape. And I do think that factored largely into the outcome here, into just being able to get, because it wasn't just Wembanyama that missed threes. It was De'Aaron Fox that missed them. It was Champagnie who had that great look at the end to win the game, and he missed it. And you got to wonder if just their legs were a little wobbly, and they just weren't quite feeling it. And so I think that's the recipe for success here for the Timberwolves going forward.
I also thought it was really funny. In his on-court interview after the game, Edwards pronounced Champagnie's name correctly. Then in the post-game press conference, he pretended he didn't know how to pronounce his name. But I just think there's always this team likes jabbing people in a lot of different ways.
It does. I mean, they do chalk trash. They do flex after wins, even as narrow as that one was. And they are not going to apologize for it. This is who they are. This is kind of what gives them the edge to keep going. And it's been interesting to watch kind of the reaction from the national fan base, who is tuning in now more to them. And I think they're kind of falling in love with this Wolves team because they don't flop. They don't embellish calls. They play incredibly hard, and they have that sort of charismatic element to them that I think people are drawn to, and it's just been really cool to kind of see a team that, by everyone's admission, was pretty maddening and frustrating in the regular season, and now they're becoming a little bit of the bells of the ball here in the playoffs.
Well, we have even more evidence that regular season doesn't matter as long as you're a top 6 seed, because this team has now won 12 road playoff games the last 3 years. They win a game. The biggest victory in franchise history is Game 7 at Denver, and then they start off this series with a road win in San Antonio, even though they're the more tired team. So, the regular season probably just doesn't mean that much. Let's get to a lot of other stuff. Rudy Gobert's usage, Nas, Finch, Kyle Anderson, etc. First, though, we want to thank our key sponsors here. We want to thank Aquarius Home Services.
When your furnace, air conditioner, or thermostat isn't working right, you need a local team you can trust. Whether your home won't heat up, won't cool down, or your air quality is a concern, your home comfort team at Aquarius Home Services finds the problem fast and fixes it right. And you get $98 off any furnace or AC repair when you book with Aquarius today. Aquarius Home Services. One call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com.
Here's John for Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
And here's Jon Krawczynski for Great Clips.
Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why I use Clip Notes to save my haircut details, so no matter which stylist I see or Great Clips salon I visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of me. So do yourself a favor, say goodbye to guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
So Chris Finch now has a higher postseason winning percentage than any. Let me rephrase. His postseason winning percentage is better than the regular season winning percentage of any other coach in franchise history. Of course, his regular season winning percentage is way higher than anybody else, even the great Flip Saunders. And I thought it was fascinating that they started the game going right at Wemby, and Wemby was destroying them. And then later in the game, second half in particular, all of a sudden they're pulling Wemby away from the rim and beating him backdoor, or they are backpicking, and sometimes right out of timeouts, or they're backpicking him and getting pre-looks. And Shannon goes from having no chance to score to having, like a great running back, having that one crease he needs to get there.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last 2 games, Game 6 against Denver, Game 1 against San Antonio, have been really, really tough on the Chris Finch haters, which are legion out there in Wolves Twitter. You know who you are. I thought that it was an incredibly well-coached game. You did see that in the first half, the Timberwolves were used to going down the lane and seeing Nikola Jokic there roll out the red carpet for them.
Backing away.
And so they were just going in as if they were not facing a generational shot blocker, and they were getting their stuff tossed. Some of it was goaltending. Some of it was, maybe a foul here and there, but generally speaking, it was a bit unhinged in terms of game plan getting to the rim. But Finch was able to calm them down, was able to make some adjustments, and I thought you hit the nail on the head, Jim, when we saw several times in the second half and in the fourth quarter especially, where Terrence Shannon Jr., maybe it was Ant, maybe it was someone else driving down the lane, and Julius Randle getting a seal on Wembanyama, kind of moving him out of the way and clearing a runway for the Wolves drivers. Now, Wemby still got to a couple of them. He still was impactful, but he was not just the overpowering demon that he was in the first half. And then you saw Finch mix in Jalen Clark. You saw him mix and match Randall, Nas, and Rudy very, very well. You saw him work within the parameters of a minutes restriction for Anthony Edwards and find other ways to stay in the game. And the players obviously always deserve the most credit for this, but I just thought the coaching and the game plan was terrific. And defensively, they were spectacular, and offensively, you heard Finch after the game say, we got to play smarter. We left a lot of meat on the bone, basically. But now I think that they've had one game under their belts to adjust to this intensity, to this defense that they're facing. I think there's a chance they come into game 2 more comfortable and have a little bit easier time getting to the shots that they want and creating offense off of that.
Yes. I thought going in that it was 2 of the people I was going to be watching closely, other than Ant, obviously, were Nas. I felt like this was going to have to be a big Nas Reed series if the Wolves are going to win. And I also wondered just how Rudy's minutes would play out and whether he was going to be the same kind of factor in this series as he was in the last. It turns out Naz has a great first game, and Rudy didn't play a whole lot in the second half. Do you think that was just specific to this game, or do you think that's going to happen more often as the series goes on?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the Wolves are going to be flexible and kind of just go with what works game in and game out. So I don't necessarily believe that because it went that way in game one, it will for sure go that way in game two. But to your point, this does feel like a Naz Reid series. This feels like needing a big to draw Wemby away from the paint and to pose a threat from the perimeter to spread those San Antonio defense out, create driving lanes and drive and kick opportunities and make things happen that way. Naz was terrific in the game. He made some threes. I think he had 9 rebounds. He was playing good defense as well, especially when they ran the 3 big lineup with him, Rudy, and Julius. I thought that Naz was playing a great defensive game against the wings of San Antonio that he was having to guard, and Rudy was timely with his contributions. He had, I think, 8 or 9 rebounds in the first half, was really active on the glass. And then there were times where they did have to go away from him, but then he came in at the end to help defensively to close down a couple of possessions that were needed. And it is going to be all hands on deck. I do think that, where Rudy was like a central figure in the Denver series, he may be a little bit more of a supporting player in this series, but they're still going to need him. And for Naz, I think he was plus 15 of the team best plus 15 in the game.
Yep.
And that is the sort of Naz Reid impact that we've been waiting to see from him. It's been a struggle with his shoulder. It's, he hasn't always been efficient down the stretch, but if they can get more games like that from him on both ends, they're going to be in great shape in this series.
Yes. We have a lot more to get to. One more last long segment to get to. We do want to thank our other 3 sponsors, starting with TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time. We have Steve Terry on the show occasionally. He's a blast. He's also is kind of embedded in the Wolves ecosystem. He knows a lot of stuff. It's great to have him on when he is on. Even when he's not on, we want to thank him for everything he's done for for TalkNorth.com and the Jon Krawczynski Show. So just remember, if you're ever injured, call 612 TSR Time, 612 TSR Time. And here's John for True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to ChuVision.com, CHU Vision.com. Set up your free consultation and go on in there to get your vision correction needs met. That's what I did almost 2 years ago now. Went into True Vision, was absolutely blown away by the hospitality, by the intelligence, by the care that they were given to me to figure out what was the best vision correction methods for me. After a lot of consultation and examination, I had LASIK surgery at True Vision, and if you can see us on this YouTube channel, you see that I'm not wearing any glasses. I have not worn glasses or contacts for 2 years, and it's been a life-changing experience. It's been so great. I can see nearsighted. I can see near and far. My life is just easier now after having LASIK surgery at True Vision, and Dr. Chu and the good folks there take unbelievable care of you from start to finish. So go to ChuVision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you, get in there, and then get on the other side of it and start kicking yourself like I did and saying, man, I should have done this 10 years ago. ChuVision, ChuVision.com.
We want to thank SGLambchops.com, which also sponsors a Twitter question that we will get to at the end of this show. Of course, I'm wearing my Lamb Chops shirt right now. I'm also wearing my Lamb Chops sweats. I wear them all the time.
I have Lamb Chop shorts on right now. They are my favorite shorts that I've ever worn, are Lamb Chop shorts. You go to sglambchops.com, put in the promo code JONK20, and you get 20% off anything that they have at Lamb Chops. Super stylish stuff that you can wear around Friday night on the North Loop. Super comfortable stuff that you can wear on a Sunday afternoon, lounging on your couch, watching some games, and getting ready for the week ahead. They have great stuff that fits, that is high quality, that is affordable, and they will take care of you. They are a local company that is embedded and invested in this community. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
I'm just wondering, will Ant and Cat guard each other in the finals?
I've been texting with Kat a little bit. The Knicks are playing unbelievably well right now. They are blowing everyone out lately. Kat is playing great. And, I feel really comfortable saying that the Knicks have a great path to get to the finals. We'll see with the Wolves. They are looking very good right now, but the level of competition that they are facing on a night in and night out basis with San Antonio, and if by the grace of God they move forward, whoever they face in the Western Conference Finals would be a huge mountain to climb as well. And so I'm not ready to go quite there yet. I'm not planning for June yet, but man, you just do kind of lick your chops and think, what if? Because that would be a series to end all series, but mostly just thrilled for Cat right now because he's playing at an incredibly high level. They are clicking, and things are going really, really well for New York.
Yes, no doubt about it. Let's get to Mike Conley. If Anthony Edwards hadn't made himself the story of Game 1, Mike Conley might have been the story of Game 1.
Just amazing, Jim. And another guy who so many people in the Wolves sphere of observers wanted, put in mothballs and put on the shelf. There's a reason that Chris Finch kept trusting Mike Conley. And the reason is because in the biggest of moments in these playoff series, Mike Conley almost always comes through. We've seen him block LeBron James' shot. We've seen him make big shots. We've seen him handle the ball and get them into offense, over the last 4 years. We've seen him have big steals against Denver. We've just seen him do so many winning things that I just can't blame Chris Finch for saying, I'm going to ride him until he literally cannot walk anymore. And when you see him in Game 1 against a very young, very big, very athletic Spurs team, still just calmly running the show, and every time the ball swung to him for a big shot, he made it. It was remarkable. He's 38 years old. He is playing the best basketball of the year right over these last 3 weeks or so. And I think he's healthy. I do think that the time that he was given off and the low minutes are really paying dividends right now. But he's been just invaluable. And it's not just Chris Finch talking about him, Jim. You listen to any teammate who you ask about Mike Conley, and you can just see how big of a lift he gives them when he is out there on the floor, when he is getting opportunities. They know how important this is to him, and they see him coming through in these really intense moments. And obviously Anthony Edwards' return from injury was the big sail lifter in Game 1, but Mike Conley going out there and battling the way that he did on both ends and making things happen and being a plus 13 gives this team as big of a boost almost as Ant did. He is that important to what this team does.
I was just thinking about it. We've both been in a lot of locker rooms. I'm older than you, and I've probably been in more different sports, covering all the things I've covered. And, sometimes fans are like, oh, you get to go in the locker room. Well, honestly, a lot of time in the locker room, you're in there and there's just this underlying tension. There's the guy in the corner who's mad at the coach. There's the guy who doesn't like this teammate. There's this feud. This guy's worried about getting cut. And it feels like those feelings kind of seep into the aura that you're experiencing when you're in there. And you feel like you're walking on eggshells a little bit. You have to phrase your questions just a certain way, to keep people from getting angry, which I'm not very good at. And I feel like as we talk about Conley, as we talk about the way Ant talks about his teammates, last night he said Jaden McDaniels is his favorite player in the NBA. The way people talk about Ant, the way the kind of the calm presence of the three core guys, Naz, Ant and Jaden. The way Jaden, as you pointed out, kind of took the heat on his own shoulders when his team was hurting against the Nuggets. I always feel like when I'm in there after a game, even after a loss, that there's, and Conley probably has a lot to do with this, there is this sense of togetherness and, hey, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah, I think that the locker room harmony is at a all-time high for at least for this season or the last couple of years, Jim. I do think that there were moments in the regular season where this team did a little bit of navel gazing, that, you know, that they were too worried about their own things and whether they were getting enough shots or whether they were in the right role or whether they were playing or not playing, things of that nature. And that was one reason that they were underwhelming in the regular season. It just seemed like they were all kind of like, you know, no one was mad at each other. It wasn't a bad chemistry at all, but it was kind of like more individual. It was more focused on themselves a little bit. And I give them all the credit in the world that once the playoffs arrived, there was a switch that flipped that way. Like, they have not worried about themselves individually at all in these first 7 games of the playoffs. They have given themselves up to the team in a way that is really endearing, in a way that is really admirable and noble. You know, Julius Randle is not getting 20 shots a night, but man, is he battling on both ends as hard as he possibly can. Rudy is sometimes a major factor in the game plan. Sometimes he's sitting on the bench for large portions of the fourth quarter, and he's not griping and grousing. Terrence Shannon Jr. went from not playing at all to starting the last 2 games, and he's handling that well, and everyone's happy for him. So the selflessness has arrived at exactly the right time. And so it just does feel like a group that has finally said, look, if we don't come together, if we don't set aside whatever individual goals we have for ourselves and put the team forward, it sounds all cliche and it sounds corny, but that's what's happening. Like, that's why they're playing so well. And that's why they've been able to weather these major injuries that they've had and still keep going. And so I just think that that spirit is carrying them forward right now. And it's so important to them, and it's going to be important to them because they are facing teams now that if you are not all in, you're going to get wiped out. Like, there's no margin for error with the Spurs. There's no there if they were to advance, there's no margin for error with the Thunder. You know, if the Lakers get there, that means that they're playing incredibly well and Luka's in there, and there's no margin for there. So it's got to be a full on, we are doing whatever it takes. And if that means Terrence Shannon Jr. is drawing a charge in the fourth quarter, if that means that Julius Randle is playmaking instead of looking for his own offense, if that means Ant is standing in the corner as a decoy and not being the main driver of the offense, that's what it takes. And that's what you have to do. And it just, when you walk in that locker room, it feels like everyone is all in the boat, rowing in the same direction. And that's a really cool thing to kind of feel, a really good energy.
Is Kyle Anderson healthy enough to contribute? And if so, is there a role for him in this series?
He is healthy enough. I do think that he could be an X factor kind of adjustment if they need a different look on Wembanyama, if they need, a little bit more playmaking. But I do think that Terrence Shannon Jr.'s emergence as a ball in your hands player has changed the chemistry and the makeup a little bit of this roster. Remember, Chris Finch was playing Shannon mostly off ball in the corner for a lot of his first 2 years in Minnesota, and most of that is because he was playing a lot with Anthony Edwards, who needs the ball in his hands, and Julius Randle, who needs the ball in his hands. But Shannon now has played, I think, 70 minutes in the last 2 games as a starter, no turnovers and the ball is in his hands a lot. And so that if that continues, then there's maybe a little less of a need for Kyle Anderson right now. But I still do believe that you will see San Antonio play some zone defense. You will see some things happen within the course of the series where it will be time to go to Kyle Anderson, but I don't think he's figuring prominently in what they're doing right away here.
So the Spurs lose game 1 at home, young team, who knows how they're going to handle it. If you're the Spurs, do you look at it and say, okay, had an open look to win the game. If we make that, changes the narrative completely. Wemby goes 0 for 8 from 3. That hardly ever happens. All you have to do is shoot better and you win that game. Or do they look at it and say, okay, we have a problem and we need to change things to solve it?
Yeah, so I would be very interested to see how they come out in game 2, Jim, because there is an argument to be made that, hey, we just shot really poorly. That it's a team that has shot well down the stretch of the season, and they were missing open looks from 3. It wasn't just Wemby, it was Fox, it was Champagnie, it was all of these guys were missing good looks. And so you can kind of say, hey, we'll just keep going about it. We're not going to panic. We're going to run our offense and trust that we're going to make more shots in game 2. And that is a very viable approach. If, Jim, they decide to make a more significant adjustment, I would look hard at, do you put De'Aaron Fox on the bench and play Dylan Harper? And that may sound crazy because De'Aaron Fox just signed the biggest contract in Spurs history. He's the veteran. And Dylan Harper is the rookie who just is still learning everything. But when I watched the two of them play in game 1, Harper was the one who looked physically ready for this matchup, and Fox was the one who looked out of sorts. And so you do not want to go down 0-2 in this series and lose both games at home. And so I would say that if things are going poorly again in the first quarter of game 1 for the Spurs, Mitch Johnson may have to be aggressive in looking at really reducing Fox's minutes and really upping Harper's minutes just because he's so much more physical. He just seems to be so much more capable of withstanding the Timberwolves' defensive physicality. And so, that's what I'm going to watch very closely. How does a very young coach handle this series, and how do young players handle this series going into game 2?
The crowds at Target Center during these playoffs have been incredible. By the way, Timberwolves, you don't need to pump extra bass into the arena. It's loud. It's loud enough.
Yes.
People cheering is loud enough. You don't need the extra crap. But the atmosphere has been fantastic. And everybody I know who's gone to a game has just had a blast. What is the atmosphere like in San Antonio, both in the arena and around the town, if you've had time to get around the town?
Yeah, it's I would say it's very, very festive. This is certainly a very proud franchise and a fan base that is used to winning championships, plural. And so this is kind of a reawakening of that fan base, of that franchise, because it had been several years where they had been down in the dumps. And even when you had Wembanyama last year, they were still, he wasn't playing a whole lot and they were losing a ton of games. And so it does feel like a group and a city that is sort of coming out of just a tiny little thaw. And I know Wolves fans will say, "Oh, that's really cute. You weren't in the playoffs for a few years. Like, come live it and walk in our shoes for those 14 years, and then come back and cry to us." But in the arena, you saw all the colored shirts. It was a super cool vibe to have the multicolored shirts in there. It was not definitely loud like it was in Target Center, except for a few occasions. Like, certainly, the Harper steal and dunk at the end, a couple of little runs that the Spurs went on, and maybe they crept ahead by 5 or 6 points several times. It did get really loud in there, but it never got ear-splittingly loud because, to the Wolves' credit, they always had a counterpunch for whenever the Spurs were coming at them. And so I would expect it to be loud again on Wednesday night, but if you want to compare it to what we heard in Game 6 against Denver and Games 3 and 4 against Denver, it was not on that level. But to be fair, I don't know many crowds that have been on that level in the 25 years I've been covering the league and going around everywhere. I mean, it was that crazy. So I'm already looking forward to Friday night at Target Center, whether it's 1-1 or, my gosh, if it's 2-0, what that crowd will be like. But I will say that it was really, really fun in that arena in San Antonio for Game 1, and I expect more of it for Game 2.
Let's wrap up the show with our Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com.
Yeah, go to sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. And 2 quick ones. One from my wife, who sent one on Twitter. Hi, John, big fan. I'm wondering if you ever sleep and have you eaten a vegetable lately? I ate vegetables yesterday, honey. I did. Even had, a Subway sandwich for dinner, so I was eating healthy. I have not slept. It's like 2.5 hours. There's just, these late games are ridiculous for giving people a glimpse behind the curtain. These 8:30 starts, I'm right until 3, 4 or 5 in the morning. Just so you can have it on The Athletic getting up. And then you're so wired after each of these games that you can't really sleep very well. And I never sleep well in hotels. And so it has been a bit of an endurance test, but I'll grab a nap later. And then the second question from Parker Fox, who, Parker, love you, huge fan. Like to see your rise, in Twin Cities media. It's been really cool to see. Who will have the ball more in primary ball handling, ball screen action through this series? Terrence Shannon Jr. or Ant or someone else? I think it's a great question because Shannon's emergence, we got into it with Kyle Anderson a little bit, but Shannon being able to handle the ball and initiate in the half court is so big because it takes so much pressure off of Anthony Edwards. Like, he does not have to bring the ball up now as often. And so when you're talking about a guy who is playing with 2 gimpy knees, who feels like he has maybe 3 or 4 drives in him per game, that he just has to pick the right spots to go, for him to be able to just jog up the court and get into the half court, sit in the corner, come off screens, do things that way rather than bring the ball up against pressure. That's just a huge development. And so I do expect to see Shannon having the ball in his hands quite a bit. He is earning that trust from Chris Finch. Again, no turnovers in the last 2 games with the heavy minutes. If he can keep that up, I mean, that just changes so much for what the Wolves can do in this series and for being able to give Anthony Edwards the rest that he needs within the game in addition to when he's on the bench. So great point, Parker. Thanks for chiming in, and I hope to see you at the arena on Friday.
By the way, let's pull the curtain back a little bit. I've had a series of great jobs at the Star Tribune. I started covering baseball in 1993. And for those on YouTube, I'm showing my bald head off. I had a really full, thick head of hair before I started covering baseball. And what John is describing is the part of the sports writing life you don't see, which is we cover late night games, we cover road games. You get back to the hotel at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Sometimes you still have work to do. You don't sleep. You don't sleep well. And then if you have a real life at home, like John has kids. When I was covering baseball, I had kids and dogs waking me up early in the morning even when I only had 2 hours sleep. It takes a toll. I'm not asking for sympathy. We love our jobs and we chose these jobs, but if you ever see a sports writer with bags under his or her eyes, that's why.
Yeah, I have hair, but I think it's probably going to fall out. We're getting some grays over here on the side because of it. It's a grind. And, I do think one thing that people should know about this job is we are obviously kind of dispassionate observers of what happens in documentarians of history. But when you are in that environment, and it is a back and forth, ultra intense game, so much emotion, fans getting into it, players going, like, you absorb that energy as well. Like, it is intoxicating to have it. And so I will. I left the arena last night around 12:30 or so, maybe 1 o'clock, because we had done the interviews and stuff. It took a long time, and I got back to the hotel to write, and I got my writing done, and then it's like, okay, go to bed. But I'm just staring up at the ceiling because like there's so much energy going through your body that you just cannot come down from it in any reasonable amount of time. And so then you go to sleep for a couple hours, and then your phone starts buzzing, and then we have podcasts and we have other obligations, and you're checking with the kids and all that stuff. And you're right, I'm not complaining. I love it. There's nothing I would ever want to do than write about this team for this audience and do these podcasts for these fans. But it does put you through the ringer a little bit, and you do have to squeeze some naps in when you can and just figure it out. It's an endurance test for the athletes for the most, of course, but for us as well, schlepping it in on commercial flights and doing all those things.
Yes, and we appreciate the work, John. A great show as always. We appreciate it. Enjoy Game 2. We'll talk soon. Please also check out John on the Viking Update Show. Sometimes we're joined by Alec Lewis, his colleague from The Athletic. Sometimes it's John and I talking about a team we've been watching and covering for decades. Check out all the shows at talknorth.com. We do appreciate it. Take care of our sponsors because they take care of us, and we'll talk to you soon.